Dear friends, welcome to another thrilling episode of The Informant Military. Today, we're diving deep into the escalating radicalization of Nicolas Maduro's dictatorship in Venezuela. With mounting evidence of one of the greatest electoral frauds in recent decades, the Maduro regime has intensified its persecution and repression of the opposition. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. The Venezuelan dictator, Nicolas Maduro, is attempting something that seems almost unthinkable in the South American country, pulling people away from WhatsApp and X, formerly Twitter. This week, Maduro announced a 10-day blockade of X in Venezuela, marking the latest in a series of efforts by his regime to suppress the sharing of information among those questioning his claim of victory in the July 28 presidential election. Contrary to popular belief, Maduro's electoral fraud didn't begin on the day of the election. It was a meticulously orchestrated plan set in motion months in advance. Maduro, with the help of top members of his regime, started by manipulating the Venezuelan judiciary, which has been filled with judges loyal to the Chavista regime since Hugo Chavez came to power in 1999. The first step in Maduro's scheme was to strip his main opponents of their political rights, particularly Maria Corina Machado, who was barred from political office for 15 years by the Supreme Court controlled by Maduro. This ensured that months before the elections, all opposition candidates with any real chance of winning were sidelined, a tactic commonly seen in dictatorships, similar to those used by Vladimir Putin in Russia, leading to his near 90% victory in the 2024 election. However, Maduro didn't anticipate the resilience of Maria Corina, who rallied the opposition around the candidacy of Edmundo Gonzalez, directing all the support that would have gone to her toward him. This move caught Maduro off guard, forcing him to adjust his plan. Originally, he aimed for a discreet fraud, where the absence of a strong opposition figure would naturally lead voters to support him, much like Putin's strategy. But with Maria Corina's supporters backing Gonzalez, Maduro had to shift to a more aggressive and overt fraud. This included actions like prematurely closing polling stations where, according to pre-election surveys, Gonzalez was expected to receive a significant number of votes. When the voting ended, the initial count revealed Maduro's worst nightmare. Gonzalez was leading by nearly double the votes, signaling a landslide victory for the opposition. In response, Maduro quickly adapted his fraud strategy once more, beginning with halting the publication of the voting tallies, claiming that the vote counting system had suffered a massive cyber attack. He later absurdly accused Elon Musk of being the mastermind behind this alleged attack. Without presenting any official records, the National Electoral Council, CNE, also under Maduro's control, declared him the winner, certifying his victory within 36 hours and officially recognizing him as the president without offering any proof. Meanwhile, the opposition, led by Maria Corina Machado, managed to access over 81% of the voting records, organizing, summing, digitizing, and displaying them. Yet, Maduro continued his delusional narrative, making wild accusations, including that Elon Musk and even Jews were part of what he described as a diabolical plot to overthrow him. Officially, the Venezuelan institutions controlled by Maduro, the Attorney General's office, the Supreme Court, and the armed forces, unified their stance, accusing the opposition of staging a US-funded coup attempt. This led to a fierce crackdown on the opposition, with Attorney General Tarek Saab launching legal action against Edmundo Gonzalez and Maria Corina Machado, accusing them of falsely claiming victory, despite them being the only ones who provided real evidence of winning the election. Alongside these institutional attacks, Maduro's regime escalated street repression. The dictator recently announced on state television that 10,000 people had been arrested, with another 1,000 on the verge of capture. Various sources indicate that since July 29th, over 2,000 Venezuelans have been imprisoned, with Maduro ordering the construction of 2 maximum security prisons to hold them for up to 30 years. All of Maduro's delusions, the street-level repression, and the institutional crackdown on the opposition are clear signs that the Chavista regime is cornered and growing increasingly desperate. Venezuela is becoming more isolated internationally, with Maduro only receiving explicit support from other dictatorships. such as those in Russia, China, Cuba, Nicaragua, and Iran. Even Lula da Silva, who initially downplayed the election issues, has had to limit his comments, avoiding facing journalists who might ask direct questions about the electoral fraud. With both internal and external pressure mounting, Maduro's dictatorship is likely to become even more radicalized in a desperate bid for survival. Unfortunately, this means that the persecution, violence, and repression of recent days are set to increase in the coming weeks. In this grim scenario, it's crucial to understand that Maduro's radicalization is not just a response to internal challenges but also a reflection of international tensions. Venezuela, already suffering from a severe economic and social crisis, finds itself increasingly isolated on the global stage. Sanctions imposed by Western nations, particularly the United States and the European Union, have worsened the situation, forcing Maduro to seek support from autocratic regimes with similar geopolitical interests. However, the internal resistance should not be underestimated. The opposition, led by figures like Maria Corina Machado, continues to mobilize the population and expose the atrocities committed by the regime. Despite violent repression, a growing movement of civil disobedience and protests demonstrates the Venezuelan people's dissatisfaction with the current situation. Moreover, the international community, though divided in its approaches, remains vigilant about developments in Venezuela. Human rights organizations have documented the regime's violations, and diplomatic pressure for free and fair elections is intensifying. The future of Venezuela remains uncertain, but the increasing repression and popular resistance indicate that Maduro's regime will face growing challenges to stay in power. The possibility of international intervention, whether through tougher sanctions or even more direct actions, cannot be ruled out, especially if the humanitarian situation continues to deteriorate. For the Venezuelan people, the road ahead will be tough. The fight for democracy and human rights will require courage and perseverance from both the opposition and civil society. But history shows that oppressive regimes eventually fall in the face of a united and determined people. Stay tuned for more updates. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for the latest analyses and insights on the world's most pressing geopolitical issues.
La red social que se llamaba Twitter, X. Elon Musk es el dueño de X y ha violado todas las normas de la propia red social Twitter, hoy conocida como X. Todas. Y ha violado incitando al odio, al fascismo, a la guerra civil, a la muerte, al enfrentamiento de los venezolanos, ha violado todas las leyes de Venezuela. Y en Venezuela hay ley. Y vamos a hacer respetar la ley. Por eso he firmado un punto de cuenta con la propuesta hecha por CONATEL, la Comisión Nacional de Telecomunicaciones, quien ha decidido sacar la red social X, antes conocida como Twitter, durante 10 días de circulación en Venezuela para que ellos presenten sus recaudos. Fuera X por 10 días de Venezuela.